My father's death was a public lie. The whole courtroom went quiet at the sound of a single syllable. A startling reality was thrown out by Gene Hackman's daughter when she faced the jury. It was no accident that the Hollywood great and his wife passed away. Where was the FBI oblivious? Who twisted the facts? In Santa Fe, what proof lies hidden? The plot thickens yet further. The beginning is yet ahead. There was an oppressive stillness in the courtroom. Leslie Ann Hackman, the sole daughter of Hollywood icon Gene Hackman, became the center of attention. Her expressionless anxiety betrayed her poise as she stood there. Questions that had still to be addressed would be presented to the jury today. The reality that everyone was curious about, her father's last months, and related questions. Was she feigning ignorance or trying to hide something? There was a lengthy period when Leslie insisted she and her father were quite close. I received his call. In an interview, she mentioned that they spoke every week. My dad was totally clear-headed. He never stopped reminiscing about the classic films and novels that he had read. People felt considerably better after hearing these remarks. Gene Hackman, who portrayed resolute figures on television, seems to have had his wits about him off-screen as well. The tale started to fall apart, though, as a shocking reality came to light. Before he died, Leslie had not seen her dad in months. According to evidence derived from phone records and statements made by others close to Hackman, he had minimal communication with Leslie in the almost 1 year preceding his demise. It was as if the call she had mentioned had never happened. Was she being truthful or was she trying to trick us? As the circumstances of Gene Hackman's life in his last days were examined by investigators, an unusual finding was made. For months, he had remained indoors. In a peaceful New Mexico house, Hackman and Betsy Arakawa resided. His neighbors reported seeing Hackman outside very infrequently, and he made few public appearances. This ran counter to Leslie's description of a mentally stable individual. Why, therefore, was this not apparent to Leslie? Why didn't she see the red flags if her connection with her father was very close? Since Leslie said she hadn't maintained regular contact with Hackman, it's reasonable to assume that she was unaware. However, an even more horrifying theory existed. She was concealing something, even though she knew everything. The fact that Leslie didn't show up until after everything had ended was one of the most fishy aspects. In Hackman's last days, she was not there nor involved in his care. When Leslie seemed quite close to her father, even though she hadn't seen him in a long time, several of her relatives started to wonder why. A mysterious comment was made by a filmmaker who was an old acquaintance of Hackman's. Not everyone is willing to acknowledge reality, even though Gene never shied away from discussing his health issues. Which truth is it? Did Leslie exaggerate Hackman's weakness? Or did she have another secret that she was too afraid to reveal? A number of theories were advanced as the investigation progressed. The first hypothesis is that, as Leslie had not maintained regular contact with her father, she was completely unaware of his health status. What she described about her close friendship with Hackman was probably an exaggeration, and she may have been alienated from him for longer than she realized. The second hypothesis states that Leslie was aware of her father's illness, but she struck it on purpose. Maybe she was ashamed of herself for being apart from him, or maybe there was a good reason she couldn't be honest. Finally, under the third hypothesis, something out of the ordinary occurred during Hackman's last months, and Leslie was attempting to conceal a secret. With the trial ongoing, a major issue remained unsolved. Was Hackman truly in as good of condition as Leslie claimed? For what reason did he cut off all contact with society? Betsy Arakawa was the only one who could certify his actual condition. Why was this? Above all else, why did Leslie's demeanor change from calm to nervous when I inquired about her father's last months? There are a lot of unspoken details in this narrative, but Leslie will eventually have to face the music. Second chapter: The decline of a legend. Leslie Ann Hackman was astounded by the medical investigation data that were laid out before her. Sudden and devastating Alzheimer's disease struck her father. Multiple heart attacks have occurred in his history. She denied it to the media and had never heard of it. It was also something she had never imagined. However, at this point, the indisputable proof encircled her. Leslie had maintained her father's total health from the start. According to her statement to the press, he remained conscious and showed no symptoms of sickness. Both my dad and I were still able to read and drive. However, a distinct image emerged from the medical findings. It was determined throughout the examination that Hackman had been dealing with severe progressing Alzheimer's for a minimum of 2 years prior to his passing. Those closest to him had noticed his memory loss a while ago. After more than 10 years of residency, he still couldn't remember long-lost acquaintances' names or how to go home. The fact that Hackman occasionally failed to identify Betsy Arakawa, his wife, was disclosed by a number of his former housekeepers. Most concerning, though, was his heart issue. According to the findings of the study, Hackman had hidden the fact that he had suffered from repeated heart attacks from the public eye. In the file, you can see a letter from the doctor who treated him. There are indications of significant coronary artery disease, and the patient has a history of heart attacks. Why his family chose not to disclose his illness remains a mystery. Why was Leslie unaware that Hackman was truly so weak? The news outlets rejected Leslie's claims as unfounded the moment this became public knowledge. His health situation should have been understood by the woman who always said she had a close relationship with her father. Curiously, though, she was either unaware of Hackman's condition or chose not to be informed. Some reporters speculated that Leslie missed her father's symptoms of sickness since she lived so far away from him in his last years. According to an insider at the medical facility, Leslie never paid a visit to her father while Hackman was receiving treatment. According to an unnamed nurse, she is free to tell the press anything she wants, but the reality is that she was never seen at the hospital. Why, therefore, did Leslie depict her father in such a different light? A plethora of new inquiries emerged. Leslie lied about Hackman's health for what reason? Why was she unaware that her father had Alzheimer's if it was indeed a diagnosis? Was she unwilling to face the reality that her father had never been coherent? It was speculated that there could be others than Leslie who desired to conceal this fact. According to some reports, Hackman's wife Betsy Arakawa had complete control over any and all details regarding his health. Only she gave him the attention he needed in his latter years, and she alone chose who could and could not communicate with Hackman. The last time I saw Leslie, it was at least 2 years ago, according to one of Hackman's neighbors. Only Betsy was ever on Jean's side. It followed that Leslie wasn't being dishonest. Due to her lack of presence with her father at that period, she was simply unaware of the facts. However, this prompted a more significant inquiry. Even Hackman's own daughter was unaware of his sickness. Why was he so reclusive? A tidal wave of heated debate ensued as news of this development spread across the media. Was Leslie attempting to preserve the family's honor, or was she just a loving daughter who cared for her father? Someone brought up an interesting point. Is this just another example of how the loved ones of a famous person seek to keep their memory alive by ignoring the truth? Like the general public, Gene Hackman's admirers had different opinions. There were some who thought Betsy had purposefully concealed her father's sickness from Leslie, leading Leslie to be unaware of it. But some believed that Leslie willfully concealed the facts in order to avoid seeing a weaker Gene Hackman, and that this was her motivation. Because the medical records showed her father was not lucid, why did she maintain that he was? Was her assertion that she kept in touch with Hackman true? Finally, was there a hidden meaning behind Gene Hackman's deteriorating health? Whichever it was, the outcome was assured. As he neared the end of his life, the renowned Gene Hackman seemed very different. The public no longer knew the man as a powerful and astute individual. He battled a terrible illness in the privacy of his own house while everyone else assumed he was doing okay. Chapter 3, The Hollywood Suspects That Shocked Everyone. Hollywood was rocked to its core the moment word got out about the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. Not only did the death of a Hollywood icon occur, but the manner in which he and his wife went away also sparked public outcry. The police originally used a word that is seldom used in situations of natural deaths, suspicious, to characterize the occurrence. The world quickly started to wonder if this was a tragic coincidence or if something more evil was at work, and theories started to surface in response. Betsy Arakawa's demise was much more mysterious if Gene Hackman's was a result of deteriorating health. She was free of cardiovascular disease, major indicators of deteriorating health, and potentially fatal underlying illnesses. However, according to the forensic report, she passed away from a rare illness that rodents spread. The medical community was taken aback by this right away. In the United States, cases of this condition are quite uncommon. A CDC doctor offered some commentary. Furthermore, the fact that this illness could infect a woman residing in a lavish estate with impeccable sanitation practices is puzzling. Still, it wasn't the end of it. A peculiar tidbit was uncovered by the authorities when they probed Betsy's last days. The outer world had no effect on her at all. No one from her social circle paid her a visit, and there is no record of her health visits during the last year either. No one picked up when they called her. Additionally, the delivery crew verified that they seldom observed somebody answering of the door. How then did she become infected? Was Hackman's residence intentionally infected with the virus? Maybe this was just an isolated incident. As soon as these questions were posed, the media began to speculate. With Hackman's death adding to the mayhem, suspicions were already high. Gene Hackman was almost alone after the death of his wife. For weeks, nobody knew what was going on at his mansion when the previous maid resigned. It appears that Hackman died alone, as stated in the forensic report. He spent his last days alone, with no indications of receiving any kind of medical attention. The picture his family had painted before was completely at odds with this. To what end? Who was the final witness to Hackman's survival? Nobody ever came to retrieve the mail that a postal worker had left at his door. No one entered or went from the area in the 3 weeks preceding the discovery of Hackman's death, according to nearby surveillance cameras. Why wasn't he being cared for by medical professionals if the medical report confirmed his serious heart problems and Alzheimer's? A theory was advanced. Someone made sure Hackman wouldn't get aid when he needed it most by taking advantage of his solitude. But who could pull that off? Furthermore, why is it so crucial to know? A number of indisputable details were picked up by the investigators quite fast. For some reason, Hackman and his wife seemed to be quite alone. In their last months, why did a famous Hollywood couple vanish from public view? No one has been seen coming or going from Hackman's residence for weeks, according to his neighbors. His prior practices were in odds with this. Although Hackman used to take pleasure in engaging in conversation with his neighbors, he has since vanished without a trace. No documentation of Hackman's medical treatment. Why were no records of his treatment found if the medical investigation report said that he had advanced Alzheimer's and significant heart disease? His medical records do not show any new medicines, doctor's visits, nurses, or caretakers. After searching the home for 3 weeks without success, detectives noticed that the security system had been disengaged. Who was it who disabled this system? Worst of all, why was Hackman abandoned immediately following his wife's death? It became more clear that these were not two accidental deaths as their investigation progressed. People started to wonder who was behind the decision to separate Hackman and his wife. What was the actual source of the unusual sickness that Betsy contracted? For what reason was Hackman left for dead in his last days? Testimony from Gene's only daughter, Leslie Ann Hackman, was coerced into giving her testimony as the case escalated. It was never in her wildest dreams that she would face questioning regarding her father's unsolved death in court. Section 4: The Ground-Shattering Daughter's Testimony. Leslie Ann Hackman's name started to come up in the public eye as the murders of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa sparked interminable arguments. Although Leslie frequently spoke about the closeness she had with her famous father, the most pressing question about their relationship remained unsolved. Was she concealing some awful fact, or did she truly not know anything about Hackman's condition? Could her testimony alter the entire trajectory of this case if she had further knowledge beyond what she disclosed? In light of the recently disclosed investigative materials, legal professionals have started to propose a daring theory. Finding out what happened may depend on Leslie Ann Hackman's testimony more than anything else. It had been months since Leslie last saw her father, which was a long time given his health, according to Santa Fe police sources. How therefore could she assert that Hackman was in perfect health just before he died? It would have been shocking if Leslie had been unaware of Hackman's serious cardiovascular condition and increasing Alzheimer's disease. And what if, despite knowing, she chose to deny it? That might trigger further inquiries since it would be so shocking. Many questions remained unanswered regarding the circumstances of Hackman and Arakawa's demise. Hackman, in a frail condition, was unable to summon assistance, even though he resided in a spacious house. Arakawa's acquisition of a rare rodent-borne disease was an unlikely coincidence that raised suspicions. Most significantly, for a long time afterward, no one outside the house had any idea what had transpired within. The case might hinge on Leslie's testimony if she knew anything about what happened before it. After leaving Hollywood in 2004, Gene Hackman led a secluded existence despite being one of the biggest movie giants. He abandoned the entertainment industry for good, settling down with his wife in rural New Mexico and leading a peaceful life. That sense of seclusion gave rise to a horrifying notion. Did he spend his last years entirely alone? Was someone trying to conceal something from Hackman since his Alzheimer's was so bad that he didn't know his wife had died a few days earlier? When his only daughter, Leslie Ann Hackman, denied ever knowing her father had a serious illness, suspicions began to mount. This was a disaster for the family if Leslie truly had no idea. A famous father and his only daughter suffer a tragic separation. The incident's true nature may be more nuanced if she knew more than what was said. Her word on the matter might either seal the deal or further obscure the truth, depending on how you look at it. Would Leslie Ann Hackman have the courage to spill the beans, or would she keep mum? Part 5, Hollywood, Influence, and the Unseen Hands. For quite some time, Hollywood has been both the center of the film industry and a labyrinth of ambition, power, and hidden truths. Legends from the past reach the height of their reputation, and then they vanish, either because their renown is waning or because no one dares to talk about the true reasons behind their disappearance. It was Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's intention to live a life outside from Hollywood. But were the unseen forces really able to save them from falling victim to the entertainment industry's manipulation? More importantly, did they have knowledge that the powerful want to remain hidden? According to an unnamed source, Hackman and Arakawa attempted to shut off all communication with Hollywood for two reasons. First, they wanted to have a quiet retirement, and second, they had discovered some truth by mistake. Their level of knowledge was excessive. As word of this comment got around in the entertainment business, rumors began to circulate, leading to several speculations. But how could they have known? Legendary actor Gene Hackman was also well connected in the industry and a gifted performer. At these exclusive gatherings, he overheard discussions that the general public would never hear about. Maybe in Hackman's latter years he put the pieces together and discovered a stunning secret. Perhaps he saw something, but nobody wanted him to tell anybody about it. It was not just Hackman and Arakawa who left Hollywood in an unusual manner. There have been a number of strange fatalities in this field throughout the years, and many people are still confused about what happened. After finishing production on Eyes Wide Shut, a film said to reveal the inner workings of the ruling elite, Stanley Kubrick tragically departed unexpectedly. Although pneumonia was listed as the official cause of death for Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack's mysterious deaths, many suspect that they were poisoned due to their privileged positions. The disputed cause of death for actor Isaac Cappy, who spoke out against Hollywood's dark powers, remains a mystery. Were Arakawa and Hackman involved in this mystery series? The unusual rodent-borne illness that killed Arakawa added fuel to the fire of suspicion. Such a synchronicity seemed quite improbable. In his latter days, Hackman similarly retreated into total solitude in a house that nobody ever came to see. Why did the police first characterize these deaths as suspicious if they were from natural causes? When compared to his peers, Gene Hackman stood out in a big way. The dark powers of the entertainment business were never able to really subdue him. Instead of becoming a cog in any system, he refrained from joining influential groups. Possibly as a result of this, he was constantly a threat. He knew too much and would reveal the truth if he was threatened. Consequently, what would occur if Hackman intended to divulge a startling secret? Did that explain their abrupt departure from Hollywood with his wife? Does anyone know what happened before Hackman could speak out, assuming these theories are correct? Gene Hackman was a legendary figure in Hollywood, yet he died in his twilight years with an eerie quietness. A healthy woman named Betsy Arakawa died of an uncommon illness. Furthermore, Leslie Ann Hackman was unaware of her father's health status, despite being the one witness who could explain everything. One major question emerges from all of these considerations. Was everything orchestrated from the start, or were these merely coincidences? Chapter 6, The Weight of a Daughter. A mark that will always remain. Power and manipulation are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the shadows that surround Hollywood. Those who are still here, the ones who were left with so many questions, feel its weight at times. The tragedy that befell Leslie Ann Hackman's parents left an indelible mark on her life. Never let go of the public scrutiny, family demands, or media attention. In the face of public opinion's storm, Leslie stands, taking center stage in the most pressing inquiries. Is she uninformed about her father's health on purpose, or does she genuinely not know? Is she a pawn in this enigmatic drama, or is there something else she's concealing? Whatever the case may be, the tragedy has altered Leslie's life irrevocably and rocked Hollywood. The medical report disproved Leslie Ann Hackman's claim that her father was in perfect condition just before he died. Multiple heart attacks, advanced Alzheimer's disease, and serious heart disease were Gene Hackman's medical conditions. She is surrounded by questions all the time. There must have been some way she was unaware of her father's illness. She insisted he was well despite mounting evidence to the contrary. Was it a fabrication, or did she genuinely think that? Her every move was scrutinized, her words examined in detail. However, there is one indisputable fact among all the uncertainties. Regardless of Leslie's awareness, she somehow lost both of her parents. This hurts, and it's an open wound that won't heal. Media and public opinion weren't the only ones putting pressure on Leslie, her own family did as well. When her parents were dying, several of her relatives felt she was too irresponsible and emotionally aloof. Some people thought she was hiding something from them. Leslie was caught in the between of conflicting feelings. Should she have made her parents visit her more often? If she had known something earlier, would this tragedy have happened? Was it her sincere belief that everything was happening at random? In addition to emanating from the outer world, those questions reverberated within her own head, keeping her up at night. Leslie might be involved, unwittingly or not, in this sinister plot, according to certain conspiracy theories. Did she really know more than what she confessed to? The general public couldn't stop wondering if her parents had warned her, but she had disregarded their cautions. Had Hackman or Arakawa spoken anything out of the ordinary to her, but she had ignored them? On the other hand, was she coerced into keeping quiet? Naturally, they are only speculations. It has not been shown that Leslie was a conspirator. The fact remains, though, that she is now the object of everyone's suspicion. Beyond being a tragic family affair, the Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa case shook Hollywood to its foundations. More significant inquiries have surfaced. Just think about all the famous people who have vanished without a trace. Is the Hollywood film industry a haven for creative expression or merely a mechanism run by unseen powers? Just how many more mysteries are concealed under the spotlights of the stage? The most critical question is, who comes next? The plot has not concluded, and it is possible that it never will. Stories of epic proportions are born in Hollywood. Accounts of the triumphs and tragedies that transpired beyond the velvet rope. However, several of those stories include unsolved riddles. Broken pieces that will never be fixed. There is still a lot of mystery surrounding Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's deaths. The story revolves around a famous actor, his reclusive wife, their isolated existence, and an enigmatic finale. There is no such thing as a wrong or correct hypothesis. The most terrifying thing is that perhaps the truth has been buried for all time. Questions that remain unsolved will follow Leslie Ann Hackman around like a ghost. Is that the case? Or may that be a clue? Is she concealing some painful reality, or does she genuinely lack knowledge? Regardless matter whether she discovers the solution or not, she will spend her entire life under suspicion. Many catastrophes have transpired in Hollywood. A slew of rumors led to the quiet demise of Marilyn Monroe, Natalie Wood, and Brittany Murphy, among others. Is it fate's cruel twist of fate or some unseen power that will take Hackman and Arakawa down next? An actual conclusion is absent from this narrative. In Hollywood's murky past, where fact and fiction blur and the truth is seldom known, this is only one of many unsolved mysteries. There is just one reality, and that is plenty for individuals who are still confused. One such solution is to remain silent.